What About Vietnam? A podcast with Gary Newsom. The series where Curry talks with travellers about their experiences and adventures. Find out more about Vietnam from the people who have actually been there.
What about Vietnam?
Whether it's adventure, exploring the culture and cuisine, shopping, or just soaking up the sun. Let Carrie and her travellers pave the way for a magical holiday in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?
Xin chào and welcome to What About Vietnam. Today I'm taking you to the last frontier of Vietnam, a place called Ha Giang. That's spelt H-A, capital G-I-A-N-G. Ha Giang actually gets connected to what they call the Loop. The Loop is actually 350 kilometres in total, so it's a spectacular region. Amazing views. You're going to see lots and lots of photos on the internet of this region and lots of people talking about motorbike riding around the Loop. I'm talking today with Tom Stone. Tom has been running tours in this area on bikes for the last 10 or 12 years. He's decided to take up route in the area and building a boutique hotel. So that's pretty exciting. He's going to give you some great insights into what to expect there from a real living there perspective. So you're going to get really things that you kind of can't get anywhere else because it's coming from someone who's really living the life and offering those tours to locals and to foreigners. So come on board today for a fabulous episode. We're going to learn lots about just what to expect in accommodation, how much time as investment that you need to put in to get the best out of the region. We're going to learn a little bit about what minority groups are located in the region, and I think it's going to give you some great advice on whether or not it's the right thing for you to include in your next trip. Please welcome Tom to the program. Hello, Tom. Welcome to What About Vietnam?
Hi, Kerry. Thanks for having me.
Just to start with, to give people an understanding of where it is, can you talk to us about its location and proximity to the Chinese border?
Yeah, sure. It's Vietnam's most northern province. So it's situated it's around 300 kilometres from Hanoi. It's about 250 k's approximately from Sapa, which a lot of people know about in the north. It's the province border is surrounded from mainly from the east and the west as the Chinese border in the far north.
And, you know, when I see the photos and I see those beautiful, that beautiful gorge, it is such, I think we actually talked about it before and you said it's kind of the last frontier. Is that how you feel about the region? Like, you've been there a long time. So, you know, like, how do you feel about the region?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I've been coming up here for a long time. Recently moved up here, but spent a lot of my time in Vietnam up in this area, and it never fails to blow me away just how astounding the scenery is, and how it's a little bit like going back in time, even for Vietnam. It's a lot less developed, especially in the way of tourism, than anywhere else in the country. And in my opinion, the scenery is unmatched. The gorge that you speak of up in the Mau Vac Dong Van area is absolutely incredible. And whenever I've had people go through there, I've never failed for them to be, this is one of the most amazing places I've ever been to and seen. It's very, very popular for photographers.
And I would think some of those photos would be drone photos, wouldn't they? Because, you know, they're taken at very high levels, some of them I see. Is that right?
Absolutely. But the funny thing is some of the best photos are just off your basic phone. You're so high up, the scenery is literally below your feet and well above your head as well. There's so much to view, which makes it, I mean, such a popular thing to see by motorbike or scooter because the scenery is so huge.
Yes. So talk to us a little bit about the loop, because mostly Ha Giang seems to get connected to the loop. They talk about the loop, and the images and kind of how I see it sitting in my head is I see lots of switchbacks. I see, very, very trails, very narrow trails where, people are kind of turning their bikes in kind of awkward fashions to try and get around some of those switchbacks. I've been on the back of a bike, so I know that feeling. So talk to us about the loop. Talk about what's involved with a tour and doing a loop.
So the loop is as it's known, the Ha Giang Loop, has become, I think, mainly popular in the last sort of 2 years. Before that, it wasn't really known about by many people. In my early days here in Vietnam, when we used to go up there and I would lead tours and things up there, they were very specialised. People would never really heard about it and wouldn't really remember the name. They would just say, oh my God, the tour was amazing. The scenery was outstanding. You've got to go to North Vietnam. And that was kind of as far as it went. When Ha Giang sort of became more popular was when there was more accessible by transport up to Ha Giang City and bike rental and bike tours from Ha Giang City, right? So people would then do this loop, as you call it, which I've seen people do. I've done it myself in 2 days, but it's really not enough to get around that size of the loop. There's obviously different ways you can go and things. To see this gorge, the Ma Pi Leng Canyon, and get right up to Dong Van and even Lung Ku, which has the northernmost point, the flag tower on the border of China up there, and back to Ha Giang, I think absolute minimum of 3 days to see it all. And even when I get people contacting me, I say, look, if you can do 5 days, even better. All these tiny little pathways and little trails that you can take to get up to some of the summits of some of these little mountain peaks and things like that, can be dangerous. There's some serious drop-offs off the side of them and stuff. But what they've also been doing is widening a lot of the popular areas, like the Sky Path, which is a small trail that runs around above the Ma Pi Leng Canyon. And you can go up there and there's some really popular, I'm sure if you get on Google, you'll see some of the photos of people posing on the side of rock cliff faces and things like that, which are a bit dangerous. But the roads getting up to them, they've actually widened them in the last, since COVID, since I've been up there and exploring a bit more. They've widened them to even almost get a car up there. So it's a little less dangerous now in that regard.
Talk to us about the minority groups and the people of the region.
The main one seems to be in Ha Giang is the Hmong people.
Yeah.
And then the other ones, I think, are the Zhao, the Tay, the Nhum, and even now the King people, which is the main Vietnamese one. But a lot of interaction to be had in this area. It's very, very much, got a variety of villages and different towns and things like that. And every place seems to have its own sort of quirks. But very much the local people are happy to interact and engage with foreign tourists coming through. A very happy place, for sure.
All right. So when you're talking about spending, 3 to 5 days in the region, and let's call it the last frontier, we talked about the loop and doing bike riding. You also said there's the opportunity to do Jeep or private car, but let's say bike riding would be the optimal experience. But you mentioned, caves and trekking, so kind of broaden our view of some of the other things that, that you can do in the region.
Yeah, well, because of this influx, obviously a lot of it stopped when COVID started. But,
like everywhere.
Yeah, but with the influx in the last couple of years, with tourism, it's a huge thing for Ha Giang, especially Ha Giang being one of the poorest provinces in the country. This little influx of tourism is a massive thing, and a lot of people got on board. A lot of people that weren't necessarily directly on this loop that people are travelling on either, but people have popped up and started saying, like, I'm learning a lot about it now when I go and try and visit new areas here and things, and they're saying, oh, well, you can trek up this mountain and we're offering this in our backyard and things like this. There's a lot of spots that are now coming into light. Trekking even just outside of Ha Giang City, up on the Ha Giang Loop mountain ranges is exceptional. Really, really beautiful. A lot of untouched jungle and great scenery up there, not even far from the city here. And then the other thing that they're finding a lot of, and I'm hearing that they will be opening a few in the next few months to tourism, the caves and things. Probably caves not in really in size comparison to what they have down in Phong Nha, but I think equally incredible. You know, it's another thing that you can visit along the way if it's something that, you know, that you're into.
So now people are starting to get a brand or a kind of a location label, and that's helping them zero down a little bit more on these areas. And as you say, some of the caves are only just being discovered in the last 5 to 10 years. I know in Phong Nha.
That's right.
And even in Barbie Lake when I was there was massive caves, but really the Vietnamese locals didn't have any idea how spectacular they were. But if, you know, I take them back and compare them to, you know, say Jenolan Caves in Australia, that they were of similar ilk. They were just as spectacular. And there was like 10 people there. That's what's mostly fascinating to me about Vietnam is it's a world discovery tour every time you go because they've discovered something else themselves.
That's absolutely right. I think it's you hit the nail there when you said that they've sort of chunked it down into different areas to see. Now, instead of just saying like something broad like, oh, go and visit North Vietnam, I think when it was like that, it was mainly made for moto tourists that were here just to discover the country on motorbikes, and that's what they would do. They would discover the whole of the North Vietnam. But in reality, the main people that come and visit here, the main tourists that come and see the place, they don't have time to see all of North Vietnam and see it the way that people do that are travelling like that on motorcycles. And so now I think that the way that they've done that is a great idea because it's now promoting a lot of repeat tourism as well, because you don't just come here and see Ha Long Bay and then Sapa and then maybe one other place like you say like Ba Bay or something like that in the north. You've got all these other options that are like, oh, wow, and look at the photos here. I've got to go and see the Ma Pi Leng Canyon up in Ha Giang or the markets in Mao Vac or something like that. Yeah, it really has opened up, I think, places like Ha Giang as a place that you would specifically come back to Vietnam to visit.
Yeah.
Because you need the time. To see it properly, you need to have the time. Yeah.
To those summits, to those peaks, to, you know, and to do it so that you're not exhausted, because if you are exhausted and you've had all that adrenaline pumping through you, going around through all these areas, sticking your neck out into places that you probably, you know, are a little bit out of your comfort zone, that's exhausting. It's tiring.
It really is.
It is. And, you know, everybody's crashing at, you know, early hours of the night because you're just exhausted from the day. But you do need to schedule in time. And people say, they look at the map and they say to me, oh, look, you know, it's only there today. It's only 200 Ks. Well, it is, you know, but on that road, as you and I both know, that can take a day.
Absolutely. That's a huge misconception, especially for, I mean, depending which country you're from. I know that like in Australia or New Zealand, 200 Ks is like, oh, we'll just go, we'll be there by lunch, you know. Here we're talking about, for instance, the road from Hanoi up to Ha Giang is only 300 kilometres, but you'd need the best part of 5 hours, 5.5 hours to get up there, even by the fastest transport, which would be private car or motorbike. The bus is similar. So you do need to plan around it, plan your time. And that's why I say to people, look, if you're going to come up here, give it 5 days or so, you know. It's like nothing you'll ever experience anywhere else, even in Vietnam. It's absolutely incredible and absolutely worth it.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about best time of the year, because you and I, when we got together earlier in the week, we sort of discussed that it's a big factor to consider when to go, because if it's raining and some of those roads are wet and, you know, you're trying to battle conditions like that, that can make it more dangerous. So talk to us about, you know, kind of the best times of the year to come to Ha Giang.
Okay. It's a popular place for local tourism. And the thing that the local people like to see is the flowers blooming. And this happens, so a lot of the buckwheat fields bloom at that time. And it's really pretty. It is really pretty. In my opinion, the most pretty of the area is the scenery itself. It's not particularly just the flowers. They're a nice thing to have there, but they happen at around spring and autumn time. So
here. That's when, what months is that?
Normally around April and October sort of time. And that's the time that has been sort of very broadcast on the internet as the best times to visit Ha Giang. Now, I've been running tours up here for a long time, particularly in the last 7 years or 6 or 7 years, and we came up with our True North tour, and it became so popular that we were running it 2 times a week throughout the year. So the fairer question, I would say, is when not to visit Ha Giang.
Oh, okay.
So
that's good to know.
Absolutely. It is absolutely. I think whatever time you come, you'll be blown away. Like we had to cancel, I think, 2 tours in that time due to extreme weather. And one was in the middle of winter when I think it was about mid-January, and we got ice. It was cold. And we had ice on the roads and everything was frozen up there. You're at about you're above 1,000 metres predominantly for most of the loop, and zero visibility at that time, so we cancelled it. And I think the other time that we cancelled was extreme heavy rain, and that was, I think, in July at one point, and that was because it was danger of landslides. It had been raining continuously for 4 days or something, very, very torrential, and it was a danger of landslides, and that's a danger that happens up here. But if you're watching the weather and you've planned a trip and you're already here, I wouldn't recommend cancelling that until the last minute, until you know what's going on or you've got someone that you're speaking to that's based in the region, so you can plan accordingly. But just going off what you see on the internet and saying, oh, we can't go this trip because it's not April or it's not October, then we can't go and see it. I don't think you have to do that. As I say, we've had very happy people going up there throughout the year. Even in midsummer, it gets very hot. But, you know, we can use sunscreen. We can put extra layers on and cover up from the sun. That's okay. The other thing is you start to get the rain like we are now at this time of year. But I'm still out and about every day, getting out on the bikes and doing things. And you'll get a downpour. You pull over and have a coffee somewhere or interact with the locals somewhere along the road, and it's always an adventure. And then you get back on the bike because it seems to stop as abruptly as it starts. So,
yes, yeah. And it's a good point that you brought up just about the variances in weather, because not everybody thinks it gets cold in Vietnam.
yeah, that's true. I've had people get off the aeroplane in Hanoi wearing their boardies, and go, I thought I was in Southeast Asia. Why?
Just talk to us a little bit about the accommodation, Tom. Now, I know you've been running the Flipside hostels. I know you're also in the mode of building a boutique resort. So that's pretty exciting. But when you talk about this area, the last frontier, I immediately go to fairly primitive kind of homestays in my mind. But talk to us about the accommodation that a person could experience or what's on offer for a 3 to 5 night stay up in that region.
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right there. Again, being a fairly underdeveloped area, the accommodation that was always here has been, yes, those fairly primitive stilt house style homestays, which can be really cool, a really cool experience for all types of people. A little bit hard on the back when you're sleeping on some hard mattresses on the floor in these stilt houses, but a lot of them are really nice, really clean, really good food, and the families are just wonderful to drink a bit of the local rice wine with and things like that. But predominantly that's sort of what you got, and that, I think, is what has tagged the area as a possibly some of the more hard adventure type tourism.
Traveller.
Yeah, traveller, yes. Yeah. And especially, as you say, when we had our hostels operating, our trip to Ha Giang was very, very popular, and it was predominantly backpackers, young backpackers that they don't mind, they wanted that sort of thing. What we're sort of focusing on now, because it seems to be a bit of a gap in the market here, and that is for the other type of traveller that want, a little bit more of comfort and a break from the rawness of Ha Giang, every now and then, to have some good food, nice comfort and decent beds and places to stay and things like that. And that's sort of what we're doing here in Ha Giang City, is trying to do something like that. But throughout the loop, and what's available now, there is becoming more. As it's become more popular, a lot of hotels and things like that are popping up throughout the area, but a lot of them are still fairly basic. I think that if people are looking to do it themselves and get up here to Ha Giang and rent a bike or something like that, it's a little bit more difficult to find. You sort of look online and get a barrage of different accommodations that are available, and it's really hard to know, which ones are legitimate and which ones are actually good, and a lot of them share the same photos. So you say, I'm sure I just looked at that one, but it's another place in another town. But there is more becoming available for different travellers now as well, which is a good thing, especially in the main towns.
Good to know. And I think for everyone listening, it's important to just explain the homestay variable, in the sense that if you're staying in a homestay in Hoi An, it's like a mini boutique hotel, and it's got all the comforts that a Westerner would be used to, be it that the beds might be a little bit hard. You're still looking at quite a modern setup, where your more traditional homestay is, as it was deemed to be, was a home stay. So it was the home of a local family, and they were opening it up to people, to visitors, to come and stay in their home and experience their home life with their family. They would cook for them, etc. So, things like the bathroom and the bed situation probably would be of that raw camper type kind of feel to it. And as you say, it's not for everyone, but it's just good to get the measure out there for people so they understand the difference. Because I've had people come and say, homestay's fine. We stayed at a fabulous place in Hoi An. And I go, whoa, that's not what you're going to get in Mu Kang Chau or, exactly. So I just thought I'd cover that off.
I think,
Am I right?
you're absolutely right, and it's actually a very good point to make. We get asked it a lot here, and I've always considered a homestay to be the latter of what you just explained. It's a very local thing where you stay actually with the family. You eat dinner with the family. The bathrooms are typically shared. If there's a private room in their homestay, it's typically a curtain that's pulled across. The beds are solid, but it's an interesting and eye-opening experience for a lot of people. Yeah, it's as you say, very different to what I would call a homestay in Hoi An or Hanoi or something like that.
Yeah.
And it seems to, even up here now, it has started to deviate into nicer places being called homestays, which is typically what we are not calling our place, because I think it is. There's a big difference between that raw, real homestay thing and somewhere that is creature comforts for Western tourists. It's a very big difference. I think you would have seen yourself staying in places like Mu Kang Chai and Ba Be, whereas all they had, I'm pretty sure all they still have is that homestay type accommodation.
Yeah, but as you say, it's morphing into a more Westerner version of the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's just about managing people's expectations.
Absolutely.
For some people, they get quite annoyed that they're not getting an authentic experience if they get the too, modern experience. So it's just about managing what people have in their vision as to what they want to experience in that region. And I think there's something for everybody, but not everything is for everyone. Just what would be some tips for people coming into the area? We talked about the variance of type of person. It's not just a backpacker anymore. There's certainly, it's opening up to a much wider audience. But if you were to throw some tips to my listeners as what they need to consider or things to bring or mindsets to have, what would you share for my listeners as in if they're going to come to Ha Giang?
Yeah, I would absolutely. First thing I would say is have an open mind to what you're going to experience, because as we discussed, the region is still raw. It is, as we call it, the final frontier of Vietnam. Even the locals call it the final frontier, not just because it's the most northern frontier on the China border, but because it is the last place that hasn't really been overrun by development and tourism. So when you enter the place, you have to understand that. And the other thing that I would say as well is try to pre-plan as much as you can. Because this tourism thing is new, a lot of people jumped on board. So there's a lot of misinformation, if you will, especially looking on the internet and things, as most people do these days, to find info. There's a lot of conflicting stuff as to where things actually are, and again, having your expectations managed correctly is an important thing. Look at contacting someone local that has been around for a while and things like that. Make sure you have a bit of a plan. You've researched where you're going to go if you're planning on doing it yourself, the type of transport you're going to be using. Because safety is a huge thing up here. As we've discussed, 300 kilometres away from Hanoi is not that far, but it takes a long time to get there. When bad things happen up here, it's a long way to get to somewhere that can help. Anywhere on a motorcycle can be dangerous. So it's important to research where you can as much as you can before you get up here. But absolutely, I'd invite people to come and see. It's an incredible thing and well worth visiting.
Yes, I agree with you totally. Just thanks again for being on the show.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for listening. Check out the episode notes for more information.
What about Vietnam?
Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review, and stay tuned for more fun adventures in Vietnam. What about Vietnam?